Good morning, everybody. I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the April 28th edition of Talk About It Tuesday. Here is a list of our staff, our phone number in case you need to get a hold of us. And this is our agenda for today. We're going to be joined by Zach and probably Samantha from ThisGen 911. And we're going to discuss some training, have some deadlines and reminders, and have questions at the end. And like always, if you have any questions, just go ahead and drop them in the chat. Interrupt us if you need to. We always like to hear from you. Okay, and as I mentioned, the first item on our agenda is ThisGen 911 has some stuff that they want to show you. Zach, if you want to, let's see, I need to make you a co-host here.
I'm going to pop on and say something while you're doing that, Michelle, if that's okay.
Okay.
Everybody who is on, if you guys use our EMD program, you know, and are familiar with this Gen 911, we have been utilizing their program, their product since November when we launched the second edition of the Alabama EMD program here in Alabama. From the board, and we have had such fantastic reviews. I know a lot of agencies have reached out to them after they have attended the class to use their product outside of EMD, which we're so excited about. So I, for one, have been very excited about everything they've offered us and their continual growth since we began in November. So we're really excited to have them on to talk about this new product. And if you are attending our conference, they will be there in the vendor hall with a table for one-on-one answers, question and answer sessions for both Tuesday and Wednesday. And they also have a speaking engagement where they will discuss some other products. So super excited about having you, Zach. And I can't see if Samantha's on here or not, but very excited about it. So I'll hand it over to you guys.
And Zach, if you want to go ahead and see if you can share your screen, I've made you co-host.
Perfect. I'm going to start not sharing the screen, so just say a couple things and then I'll share from there. But
Okay, sounds
really
good.
appreciate really appreciate the chance to connect with everybody today. And the quick version of us is that we want to support all of the people of 911 and with especially with the staffing crisis that's going on. How do we give folks back capacity and help everybody within their role? And so today, what we'll talk about primarily is the sort of two parts of that, but we do some others, but all of that is tied back to the people and trying to give back capacity and help the people within the seat. And so we'll talk about how we help get the right folks in the door, and that's certainly helping the center, but it's also helping folks decide if this is for them or not. If this is this is a job they want to be in, and that's important because we need to get it doesn't help anybody if you get somebody to fill a seat and then a few weeks later they leave. Like that's bad for everybody. And so how do we get the right folks in the door? And then once you do that, how do you get them up to speed and trained as quickly as possible, and have a sense of mastery and autonomy and because so many people they join it for the right reason, they have the purpose, but how do we support them in that? And then helping the ongoing team, with supervisors, CTOs, directors, with automated QA, extending the review, less time listening to audio, right? More time on the coaching part, or with AI supported DORs and task sheets. How do you have less time filling out a form, and again more time coaching and helping somebody? And so trying to put that focus back where it should be. And so we'll spend first part of the time talking about ThisGen PreHire. We just launched it last week. It's our PreHire assessment, and then we'll also then talk about how we're supporting Alabama EMD as well. So that's sort of the roadmap. But the first part is this in pre-hire, and I'll share my screen here as I'm doing that. The before I do that, I guess the thing I'll say is this is free, not free with a catch. not like an asterisk, right? It's free for any center who signs up before May 31st. It's not like free with a purchase. You're really it's literally just like you could just have it. We've had dozens and dozens and dozens of folks getting started the same day, no cost at all. And so this is us trying to sort of support the mission of what we actually care about, and doing that. And so no, there's nothing to sell you here. You could have it. You could sign up with it, and it's totally free there. So let me share my screen, and we can share a little bit more about what we're up to here. Um, share this share. Perfect. And so confirming you're able to see pre-hire here. Lovely. I'll make it even a little bit bigger. So what I'll say to start, when we thought about this, we wanted to make sure that there was, the rigor that you would expect. But and so when we did that, we started by going out to the APCO and NINA standards and said, look, this is our goal. This is what we want folks to be able to look like. But they can't be that today. They're not trained to do that today. And so how do we match what we want to see with a test that can measure whether somebody can learn and grow into the role, whether this is going to be a good fit for them. So we started there on the research side. We went out to then the science side to say, all right, what kinds of tests can we look at where somebody can demonstrate whether, in some cases they have the skill to do it, in other cases where we believe that they could learn or grow into that. And we pulled, different tests, and then we looked at the research behind those tests, and then we tried them on to say, is this the right test? Are we going to measure the thing that we're looking for? And what we landed on was across 4 domains. So you can see these listed here: operational skills, cognitive aptitude, critical judgment and resilience, and job realism. So operational skills, there were a handful of things that when we looked at it, we said, look, this, if you don't have this, it's going to be really hard, right? We could theoretically teach you, but like there's a limit to what we could teach you, or what we have the time to teach you from a capacity perspective. And so a few things fell into that bucket, like data entry, right? So I know many folks today have a typing test. That's what that is, right? Look, I don't have time to teach you how to use a keyboard, and there's a handful of things, and we'll walk through each of these pieces, these modules. But there's a handful of things that we thought was just really important to be able to have up front, table stakes. And so some of those were skill based. Several of them were aptitude based, to understand, look, there are parts of the job that require, working and being able to, there's a lot going on, right? There's many, many screens. And so visual search, how do you make sure that you're finding the right information within all of the different resources that you have, or task switching? So a measure of sort of multitasking, if you will, right? But the ability to be focused on one thing and then to switch to focus on something else, because there's a whole lot that goes on, within the role, and you have to be able to handle that, and the cognitive load of all of that. Working memory, and so it tests around, a digit span test, but it's really around working memory to be able to hold something in your head that's needed to be able to do the job. And so this wasn't, can you do the job? It's are we going to be able to train you? You're going to have like, sort of some of the aptitudes that we saw when we looked at telecommunicators and their role. Critical judgment and resilience. This is a high stakes role. Period, right? And so we want to make sure that what does it look like? What's your professional conduct? How does your critical judgment look like? Or your impulse control. What does that look like within this test? And being able to understand, like, can you do what you're trained to do, not just necessarily like your first instinct, but really, we're training you. We want you to do what you're trained to do there. And then finally, job realism. And whereas the others are often pure measures, we look at typing speed, or we look at, at task switching cost, and, there's a milliseconds to that, right? This job realism really integrates several of these pieces, because what we want to do is also give the candidate a realistic sense of what the job can be like. We heard from, a number of directors that folks would get into the seat, then a few weeks in, they'd be like, oh, this is what the job is. Wow, if we could pull that forward, because sometimes they would say, oh, this is what the job is. I don't want to do that. That's not for me, right? And so if we could give them some of that exposure ahead of time, some folks might select out, and that's okay. We want folks to be in this, again, to have that sense of mastery, autonomy, and if this isn't the job for you, that's okay. We'd rather know that up front than later on. So those are the 4 different components of the assessment. In practice, then, what that looks like when we take that is that it has each of these has a different section. This is a default. It is out of the box. It just works. But you can customize it if you want. I'll walk through the base one to start, and I'll do so through the domains, not sort of top to bottom here. And so operational skills. Again, this is some sort of table stakes things. I want you to be able to type, and so this is a very traditional typing test where you are doing it, but it has it's the test. All of these tests are built for 911, right? And so in this case, it's understanding your typing speed and accuracy, but on things that you might actually type, and so it's structured with more of a CAD style. You can do a more traditional paragraph test that's not on the sort of base module, but typing is one of those things that we want to see where you are today. Another operational skill is map navigation, and this was probably one that surprised me the most. Where I'd like you to be able to navigate from A to B, and I don't want you to run one ways, and I don't want you to run through closed streets, right? I just want you to have a sense of direction and be able to navigate, landmarks as well. And so I thought surely everyone will be able to pass this, and that's just not true, right? And that's okay. But wanting to be able to understand, somebody's ability to navigate and have some spatial awareness there. Cross-referencing, this is some of the clerical sides of just being able to understand if you're looking at a record, is that the same record, and that things can be close but not the same. And so the example here is where you look at two records and you identify, are these the same record or are they different? And so record A in this case is the same as record B, or down here, some digits are transposed. And so being able to do that and just do the parts of the job, basic parts of the job that we want to see. That isn't really a training thing. It's just can you have some of a basic skill? So that's the first bucket, is operational skills. The second is the aptitude section, and so this looks at whether somebody is going to be able to sort of grow into it and learn and adapt and be able to take on the role. So one of this is around the multitasking side. The way that this works in practice is you first sort by color, and so you're looking at I'll show you. You're looking at a in this case a yellow square, right? And so I'm only looking at the color. And so then I sort it to the right and to the left, right, by color. Then I sort by shape. So in that, I would have looked at the square and I sort that one way. And so then I can get a measure of what does it look like if you just are focused on one thing? What is it if you're just focused on the other thing? And then I switch them. I say, okay, sort this one by shape, sort this one by color, and sort of back and forth, back and forth. And I alternate, and I don't necessarily tell you which one, shape, color, that kind of thing. And what that does, what the science shows that does, is it helps understand somebody's switching cost. If I'm focused on one thing and then I have to switch to now focus on something else, I have a baseline for what it takes me to focus on just one of those tasks, and now I'm switching between them, and I can measure that. And this was one where we saw a really, an interesting difference as well between, folks that have been doing the role for just a year or two, and folks that have done the job for 10 years plus, right? And what we want to study whether is that a learned thing or is that an aptitude thing that somebody just that has. Is it a predictive measure of where somebody can be successful or more even longer tenured in the role? So we're going to continue to do work there, but that's the first of the aptitude, is that ability to understand somebody's multitasking, because there's just so much going on within the role. Digit span. This is a measure of working memory, so being able to hold something in your head and then use that information. And so it starts with a forward span where I list off a series of numbers, 739, and then you have to type 739, and then 7391, 7391. Actually, it doesn't progress. It doesn't add a digit to the end. It's sort of different digits every time. So bad example, but that's the first, is you're sort of understanding how many, if I just rattle off numbers, how many can you remember? The second is where it's much more difficult. But I rattle off a string of numbers, and instead of giving them to me back as like 482, you're supposed to transpose it in your head and do 284. And so both of these, again, all the tests here sort of come from the industrial organizational psychology and ability to measure somebody's working memory as it applies to the role. The last, on the cognitive aptitude, there's a lot of, again, visual going on, 9 screens, depending on where you work. And so this is an understanding of can you sort of very quickly find the thing that you're looking for within this. And so it first does it by base, where it's color distinct, which is more visually obvious of where it is. And then at about the halfway point, it'll switch over from a individual, distinction to then having the flip here. So now there are other reds, and I'm supposed to find the square. And so there are other reds, there are other squares, and so it's a conjunction thing. And again, I'm measuring the speed at which you're able to do this. And so all of these, backed by science, we have the research, you can see them, but all of them trying to understand, is somebody going to be able to learn, grow into the role? So that's operational skills, cognitive aptitude. Third domain is the critical judgment and resilience. Again, just wanting to understand somebody's high stakes role. We want to make sure that they're able to have impulse control and override some of the decision making. And so the first is an impulse control. It's very simple. You're looking at, push the spacebar when it's green, right? And so you have in your head, and it's measuring how fast you're doing this, how fast you're doing this. And when it's red, you're not supposed to. It's your initial impulse. If I give you instructions, can you follow those instructions? Or do you just like, oh, I'm going to press spacebar, going to press spacebar, going to press spacebar. Like, I'm doing so great. And then press spacebar when it's red. Wrong. Right. And being able to just have the cognitive function to override some of that on an impulse perspective. And then the second piece there is professional conduct, and this is where we pulled a panel of subject matter experts here that have had just years and years of experience within the domain, and being able to run them through a situation that is it was hard, right? It's, hey, going through a difficult divorce, having a drink before shifts to start to take the edge off. Like, what do you do? What do you do if somebody tells you that? And it's not always clear. So what's the professional judgment and decision making around some of that? And so ordering these and being able to rank that and seeing how, where somebody scores against where our panel of experts scores that to understand their critical judgment and resilience. And then finally, operational skills, cognitive aptitude, critical judgment, resilience. Finally, is job realism, wanting to give again somebody a sense of the job and us to get a sense of them, in a closer environment to what it looks like. And so the way that this is constructed, the first is where you listen to a call, you then specify what happened within what you listen to. You get one listen on it, so pay attention, and they're close, sort of close on what happened, and then we have you classify that. Was that a high priority, medium priority, low priority? I don't expect you to know those a priori. I give you very, very direct guidance. This is what high means. This is what medium means. This is what low means. I do expect you to be able to reason through that and read directions. And then finally, I ask you to explain your reasoning. And this is important because we don't want to boil somebody down to a number on a page. That's not what any of this is about. I'm trying to understand the candidate in a more robust way. I'm trying to give data on the candidate, and this is part of it, is to be able to understand, get into their head. How, walk me through how you were thinking about that. Is it that you think any incident at all involving a child is a highest priority? Why is that? Like, well, let's talk through some of that. And so where we can, we want to be able to bring forward the candidate's thinking as they go through that. So that's one. The second is the simulated calls. So this takes what we've done on the training side, we'll talk a little bit more about, and moves it into a way where the candidate can really experience that. And so the way that this looks in practice is you can. So this is how the test works if you were to send it to a candidate either remotely or in person, but they can go in here. And a test with the person. They get the instructions. They have the various audio checks, the microphone checks. You can require a camera so you can actually see them taking the test. There's checks for all of that to make sure that they're doing it in an authentic way and sort of the integrity behind it. But they walk through this. They get very clear instructions again on how they're supposed to do it. But then the call itself, it will simulate a 911 call. And we do an easy call, a moderate call, and a hard call. But because they're not trained to do the job, we give them the guidelines. You saw there the guide cards on what it was. I'm going to pause for just 1 second. Are you able to hear that ringing? I just want to make sure the audio is coming through as well. No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when you share your screen, there's a spot that I think you share audio.
Okay. Let me hop off of this and try resharing. How about now? Yes. Okay. And so the way that this will work is 911, what is the address of your emergency?
Yeah, I need some help. There's been a fender bender, and it's got traffic backed up pretty bad.
Okay, what's the location?
It's right at the intersection of North Queen Street and East Chestnut Street, here in Lancaster.
You said North Queen Street and East Chestnut.
Yeah, that's right, North Queen and East Chestnut, Lancaster.
Okay, and what's your first and last name and a good callback number for you?
Sure, it's Marcus Reed. My phone number is 717 752 0093.
717-752-0093. So there's a fender bender. How many cars were involved?
Two cars. Both are stuck right in the eastbound lane.
Okay, we're gonna have someone out. Give us a call back if anything changes. Thank you. So you can continue that conversation, but it's interactive there. They're getting a sense, and again, there's an easy call in this case where he's not hysterical. He's not, there's nothing more going on in that. Then there's a moderate call and there's a harder call, and so giving a candidate a range there, but you also a sense of them, and so they're doing some of the job, right? They're multitasking and they're listening to audio and having that conversation while also filling out the CAD. And there's some open-ended pieces. Describe what happens. There's some explicit, follow these very explicit instructions on, say this as an opener and get some of the information you need. And so it sort of mixes that to see where a candidate is. And so that is that's the test at its core is looking at these sections, and then in practice. When when somebody takes a test, again, they can take the test remotely, they can take the test in person, and we have some things to support the integrity of that. And so if I come down here, we have a full screen replay. So if they do take it remotely, like we still are, we see as they took that test, you see the red there, you see them moving the mouse, walking through the test as they step through things. We record for any of the sections that are text-based. We record the text. If it's audio-based, we record the full audio, the full transcript. We are very transparent behind that. We also do some things that try to catch integrity pieces. So if they're leaving the window constantly, and why are you doing that? If you're trying to copy and paste, you can't. But we log it if you tried. And so trying to keep the integrity of the test whole. I mentioned you can also turn on the camera, and so that's why this over here is white, right? Like you can see their face while they take the test, right, and see them interacting with that. So that's from an integrity side. And then the actual report itself, we play back again across each of those four domains: operational skills, cognitive aptitude, critical judgment resilience, and job realism, where an individual scored and how that how they did on that. We also show the details behind each individual test. And then you can see, like I said, all of the details behind any of the tests. Where what their in this case what their keys per hour was and what their error rate was, and sort of exactly what they typed in throughout that test. And so very transparent within that. But you can see where we have strong signal. Hey, we saw that there's this person did really well here. Where there's moderate signal. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. They did a fine, sort of down the middle, great. Or weak signal, and it's not to say that they don't have that. We're spending 45 minutes with them, right? In digital format. What we can say is we didn't see evidence of that, that they would have that. And then there's, it does get, summed up. There's a score there, overall signal. But I'll say importantly, like we break down the details because the details matter. So, if you looked at this test and the person's data entry was, way down here, and they can't use a keyboard, that's going to be problematic, right? Like you could be great at, you could look great in all sorts of ways, but if you just can't use a keyboard, we might have a problem. You might just not be able to do the job. Or if things look really good, but your professional conduct is just truly in the gutter, I want to have a conversation about that. What happened there? How's your decision making? Right. So there's different profiles that, and you have to decide as an organization what matters to you. You can also see, you see these diamonds plotted. This is an internal, local calibration that you can do as a team. You can have your existing telecommunicators take that, and then we plot that as well. Within this, we also try to show you other areas. So, we know that not everybody is going to, be excellent in every area. And so, we have where we found resources that we think might be useful. So if somebody does struggle on the typing side, here's a test. But it's not a test. It's actually adaptive. It allows you to identify which keystrokes you are worst at, and then helps you get better at those specific keystrokes. Or maybe it's the spatial side and the geography. And so here's where you can plug in your local geography, and you can make it as a game, right? Where's East Madison Street? East Madison Street's right there. And I can say, great, you did it, right? And then, or not, right? And so there's sort of gamifying some of the geography behind that. And so where we can, providing resources to help somebody continue on and really tie that, in one, we have a single thread of from hire all the way through the training process, the automated QA process, so to pull this person all the way through. But that is the pre-hire side, and where things are today. You get the results instantly. Like I said, you can take it remote or in person, and it is absolutely free. It is no cost for any center who signs up before May 31st. And so we would love to partner with you on this. And if you know somebody who it might help, you tell them about it, because we'd love to help however we can. I'll pause there. That's ThisGen pre-hire. Any questions on any of that?
We have a question in the chat. Does the test take spelling errors into consideration, and do the applicants get a copy of the results to the email they enter?
Yeah, great questions. So it does take accuracy into consideration. And so within that score, there are, I'll just pull it up here. It does take that into consideration. So hopefully let me see. There we go. Right. So you can see in this string, there was something wrong. That's a VIN number, so it's a little bit harder to see. Right. But it weights, you can't just type bunch of letters, right? Like it does take that into consideration. So there's an accuracy component, there's a speed component, and then both of those combine. So yes on that. And then do the applicants get a copy of their results? That is an option. It is not you don't have to have them get that, but it is an option. So when you set that up, there's an option here for a candidate self-report. And so as soon as they're done, that they can get a copy of that, or you can have that turned off. It's off by default, so only your team sees the results, but they're able to. You have that ability to, if you'd like to turn that on. And you can also, I didn't show that, but you can also like print it out. There's a PDF view of that. So if you want a copy of that, if you want to put it in some record somewhere, right, you can do that. Specify which sections are there. So you take it out of our system as well. It doesn't have to stay there.
That's good. Anybody else have any questions before he moves on? Okay.
All right. So the second piece then is want to talk a little bit about how we've had the privilege of supporting the Alabama EMD program. And so the other part, one of the other parts of our platform is training. And what we allow folks to do there is to practice any call you can think up. So anything that you've got in your head, hey, I wish I could practice that. We allow you to do that. And so we have a library across tons of different call types, police, fire, EMS, and you can use ours or you can customize it. And so in this case, softball arm break, this is, default. But if you're not a softball fan and you want it to be a baseball, you can do that, right? Like, so you can change anything in here. You can add to it. You can give more details, less details. But what the way that we're partnering on this is as a part of the EMD program. Obviously you have guide cards. You have cards that say this is, if it's an abdominal pain card that looks something like this, right? This is what this is what you're supposed to do for an abdominal pain. And traditionally, the way that you would do this is you would role play it, and somebody would pretend to have abdominal pain, and they would call in, and they would make up some scenario in their head, and allow somebody to be able to sort of step through some of these questions. And what we're partnering on is to help you be able to practice this or any of the cards that you're looking for in a way that is realistic, but also is on demand. And so if you're struggling with something, or if you took one call and man, I didn't do that well, but I'd like to practice it again and get better at it, you can. Or if it's a call that, hey, I've actually never delivered a baby, but I'd love to run through that on the EMD side. You can do that as well. And so that's what we've partnered on. And the way that this works with our system is we've made it really, really easy for anyone who uses the EMD there to be able to come in and to customize. And the way that works is you can simply upload yours. You have to have permission. So do not upload anything you do not have permission to share here. That is very, very, very important that you need permission to do that. But in this case, right, we partner on the Alabama EMD side. You simply select a file. You can upload the PDF version of that. We'll do it for you if you have permission for that. And then our system auto parses. And then what happens in practice is it takes that and it breaks it down after the call so you can see the different protocol or set of protocols that it matches so that you can see the questions that are here. And so this is what that would look like. And say, for any given, this is a police call, so this doesn't apply here, but the side of the protocol applies, where you take that call and then you get that the automated grading to say, hey, did you follow what you were supposed to on this card? Did you ask the secondary questions, or did you get the key questions right? And so it follows through there, and it also follows through and will match multiple. So in this case, if I ask my first question, is the patient a female that could possibly be pregnant? And if it was, and then she turned out pregnant, and I follow through the pregnancy problems, right? Like it'll map through those different cards so that I can get that feedback. And so this allows folks to practice if there's any changes in cards. You can practice that if you're changing over from a different version. You can get experience that if you've got new people that are ramping up. You can do that, right? So the goal of this is just to allow folks to practice as much as they can within that. And so if you're a part of any of those trainings, hopefully you've seen that, experienced that. You get it afterwards. You can continue to practice it, and certainly if you have any feedback or if we can make anything better on that, please let us know, because we want to support that process to the best of our ability, but making sure that we're just reinforcing the amazing work that's already been done here, and the guidelines that are given, and just how do we help folks get practice. It's unsurprising that practice helps you get better at things. Yeah, it's true, regardless of what area of life. That's how we're supporting the Alabama EMD program, and we're just really excited to be a part of that as well.
I know we've heard from folks that they really like that part.
So that's the two pieces that I was hoping to talk through. Again, the pre-hire side, and on that, if there's anybody who has interest, we'd love to help support you. I can drop a link into the chat there for that. But that is how you can access any of that. And then on the EMD side, that's just sort of, we're already doing that. And so hopefully you've experienced that, and if not, hopefully you will shortly as those trainings continue.
Yeah, exactly. We really appreciate you joining us, Zach. Does anybody have any questions for Zach as he finishes up? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Zach, you're welcome to stick around. We really appreciate you joining us today. That was quite a lot to take in, but I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of people.
I hope so. Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Zach.
Let's see. All right. Let me go back to sharing my screen and we will move on. Okay. We went through questions. Upcoming training. Laura, you want to take it from here?
I didn't have anything prepared this morning because I have been up to my eyeballs in conference stuff, as you guys know. So I'm very, very excited. We are all in conference mode here in the office, running around, checking all the stuff, starting to pack things up. And so if you are headed to Huntsville next week, we are super excited to see you guys. If you're registered, you'll be getting some reminder emails soon, kind of just to talk about our opening session and our closing are actually not at the Marriott. They're at the Space and Rocket Center. So I wanted to make sure people knew about that, registration times, things like that. But we have the EMD instructor course is June 1st through 3rd in Hoover, Alabama, and at one of the Hoover municipal buildings. And so great location, should be easy for everybody to get to. It is a full 3-day class. And I don't think I have anything right now. I usually have a lot to say, but I have a lot to do doing conference things. And we're just really excited about it. I hope that all of you on here are going to join us. And if you're not, that you can catch us next year. If you have questions about it, of course, email Daniel or myself. But yeah, I don't have anything else at the moment. Sorry about it.
Okay. Well, one thing I wanted to say is these links here. The first one goes to our website here, and that lists our training as well as other people's training. So if you have a training session you're holding that you can open to outside agencies, send it to me. I'll get it posted. And so, but if you're looking for training that may not be available from us, it may be posted on our website. And in My Alabama, that takes you to our training registration in the app, and that's all the training that we offer. All right, upcoming deadlines. Grant status reports are due on April 30th. That is coming up very quickly. So our statement of economic interest. So if you need to file a statement of economic interest, it is due April 30th. And then grant cycle 11 is open. It is focusing on call handling, and those applications are due on June 19th. And as always, our reminders, your 911 legacy cost reimbursement submissions and your PST certification reimbursement submissions, if they are received by us by the 10th of the month, those are generally paid out at the end of the month. And there's links to the forms there to get those submitted. One question I had over the weekend was, can I file more than one quarter on a form for legacy? Yes, absolutely. If you did not file for quarter one at the end of quarter one, and you now have all your quarter two stuff, you can do both of those on one form. And I know Anderson wants me to remind you to upload, validate, and aggregate your GIS data to the state office, the EP, every 2 weeks. As he's been stressing a lot lately, data recency matters. I don't have anything else. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so we are going to see you at the conference next week. As Laura stated, we are all busy packing, getting ready, doing all the stuff to make it great for y'all. So if we don't have any questions, don't have any more comments, I will close this out. I will get this posted either later today or tomorrow, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.